Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Cabral and Salisbury show. It has been a while since we have recorded one, and we do dearly apologize. We've just had some scheduling issues. My friend Jason here does have school and work to worry about, so we do have to try to schedule our podcast recording around that. But again, I do apologize, and let's get right into the show. Today, we're going to be talking about WWE. We're going to get into some spooky stories because it's Halloween.
Hey,
So, Jay, would you like to kick us off for today?
hey guys. So our first story today, basically just the war between AEW and WWE. What's been going on? Different signings that have been made for AEW. You know, WWE of course losing in the ratings battle and losing some of their talent to AEW. So, Sean, how about I don't know, why don't you kick us off like some of those signings?
Well, for sure, we can see here that AEW has been stealing or I guess not really stealing, but giving those wrestlers actual time. So we have some notable names. I think the Fiend Bray Wyatt will be going over. Am I correct?
That is, rumor has it that he will be joining AEW soon. Uh, there's definitely been some tweets about it, kind of hinting at it, and you know how everybody is with everything. They like to keep things
Yeah.
secret, but then they like to also like kind of give you a clue in as to what's going on. So, just a few days ago, Bray Wyatt tweeted about how his no compete clause is coming to an end. Matt Hardy also tweeted about the same thing.
Hmm.
There's a lot of speculation. He is going to join AEW, join the Dark Order, which I love that, and I think that's just the best way that he can pay respect to Brody Lee, who passed and last December. I just
Right.
I think it's been a long time coming. I know Bray Wyatt had to take the time off personally because I mean let's face it, he wrestled right through Brody Lee's death and never took that time to mourn, and it messed with his mental health. So I think he's ready to come back. I think he's coming back to honor Brody Lee, and the best way to do that is join the Dark Order and AEW.
For sure, and we also have some other stars out of our, I believe, already went to AEW, such as Daniel Bryan, who is now known as Bryan Danielson, and of course Andrade, which is no, I believe his in-ring name now at AEW is Andrade El Idolo.
Uh,
I believe that's his name.
Something to that effect. But yes, Daniel Bryan, now known as Bryan Danielson again, which is kind of funny. Um, because Bryan, oh, see, yeah, Bryan Danielson, I said it right. Um, see, you kind of got to get used to it. But um, the cool thing about it is he talked about his first meeting with Tony Khan, and Tony Khan said he's like, I don't want Daniel Bryan, I don't want WWE's freaking B plus player, freaking all that. No, no, no. He said, I want the old Daniel Bryan, the Daniel Bryan of Ring of Honor, the American Dragon Daniel Bryan, about Bryan Danielson, and it's freaking awesome. In my opinion, I mean that is when Bryan Danielson is at his very best. That's something that I
Hmm.
think fans have been missing for a long time, and I'm talking about like true pro wrestling fans. So it's great to see
Yeah,
Bryan Danielson back to his old self.
for sure. And we also see some other stars that have already went to AEW long ago. We have Chris Jericho, Matt Hardy, obviously, and I think they're more at home at AEW than they've ever been in the WWE, and they are definitely much happier there. And what do you think of the because obviously CM Punk came back, that was a huge pop. I know we're a little bit late on that, but definitely that's a huge thing that was
I,
kind of recent, not recent,
yeah,
but that's definitely
I,
one of the big points.
I don't know if I've heard a louder pop in pro wrestling than CM Punk's return. Like
I don't.
in all honesty, like that reaction was absolutely insane. To be, it's funny because I mean he hasn't wrestled since 2013, I believe, and to have that crowd reaction 8 years later is just amazing. But not just that, and it's kind of what he said. It's taking a shot at WWE here, but he's like he hasn't been in pro wrestling since 2005 when he left Ring of
Right.
Honor. So he's definitely happy to be back. He loves the talent that's in AEW. That's why he came back was because AEW is truly professional wrestling, and just the guys in that locker room are just insanely talented, and that's what AEW is. It's they have a laundry list of just super talented superstars that these guys are gonna. So these guys are taking over wrestling.
Right. And I have to agree with you there. Um, we're definitely going to see a lot more stars going over there. I believe. I'm not sure Ricochet transitioned yet, because I'm not really a huge follower of AEW, but I do know WWE. Ricochet does not really have a presence there anymore, so if he did go to AEW, he'd probably be a way better choice to go there, in my opinion. They'd probably make him do a lot better storylines. Actually, give him some matches.
And that's
You know what I'm saying?
and that's kind of the theme that we've been seeing is guys leave WWE and then go to AEW and they get used better and they get thrown into better storylines. I mean, and the thing with that is they also have more, like in AEW, they also have more creative say in their character. I mean, Sean, I know this is one of your favorite guys, formerly known as Aleister Black, now known as Malachi Black. That I think is
Mm-hmm.
the perfect example of why it's so important to have your talent like have say in their characters. Because Malachi Black might be one of the best things in professional wrestling right now. I love the character. I love everything that he's doing with it.
Yeah, I agree. We're also gonna hopefully see Braun Strowman, maybe some female stars go over, and we're gonna have to see where that goes. But did you hear about that huge jab from between Roman Reigns and CM Punk? Did you hear about that in the
I
news?
I heard a little bit about it. Yes. Do you know more about it?
Yes, Jason. I actually can go a little bit further with that. Reigns has had a history of actually commenting on CM Punk in AEW. Recently, I quote, Roman Reigns said, "That's not going to elevate me at all. He's older now. I haven't really seen a full match. I've seen a clip or two, and to me, a step or two has been lost. And also, he got his butt kicked in the UFC. I don't know if he's talking about Brock there or what.
No,
I don't know.
that's Punk. Punk had a short stint in UFC that didn't
All
really
right,
work out.
all right, let me redo that again. Yes, Jason, I do know a little bit more about that. Reigns actually said a little bit earlier in October, I quote, "That's not going to elevate me at all. He's older now. I haven't really seen a full match. I've seen a clip or two. And to me, a step or two has been lost. He also got his butt whooped in the UFC, and I don't think anyone really believes someone 200 pounds soaking wet with no explosive bone in their body could ever really do anything to me." Reigns also stated, and I quote, "So I mean, when it comes down to it, I'll throw him and pretty much the rest of the AEW roster out of the club, no problem. They're just little brothers, you know." And again, another quote back in October, or not October, August, I'm sorry. He also said, and I quote, "CM Punk wasn't as good or over as John Cena. He didn't move the needle like The Rock. And he doesn't. I don't think Roman Reigns really respects CM Punk for what he is. Do you agree?
I agree with your statement there. I mean, it's clearly evident. Because the thing is, there's two things I want to say to that. One, actually, there's three things. One, no disrespect to John Cena, because I also love John Cena. I have a lot of respect for him, but there is clear evidence in videos, and go back watch the old Raws and shit back when he had the rivalry with Cena. Punk was more the fan favorite then. Punk was definitely over, over than Cena at the time. Especially considering Punk was the guy in the company. So that statement is false. Secondly, Punk, you gotta think it's WWE, so Punk probably
Mm-hmm.
wasn't used in the best of light, because that's just
Mm-hmm.
kind of what WWE does. It's just they don't really truly use many of their guys to their full potential. So you can't really
Right.
blame Punk for that. But not just that. If you're looking at it from a point of like what he did for the fans,
Right.
like Punk was quote unquote like straight edge, like that was his thing. Like he did not care. He said what he wanted, and the fans loved it because the thing with Punk is he is a true fan of the industry, so he relates to the fans, you know.
Right.
And that kind of goes into like why fans were so excited to see him come back when he did, because Punk has always represented what the fans have wanted.
Right. And I agree. Like CM Punk is one of those iconic characters that has always been through has gone through wrestling, and we've seen that. Like my father's a fan of him, and he's been watching since he was a little boy, and I've watched it myself. of course, since I was growing up. And CM Punk, he has a certain way about him. His character is iconic. He called out the establishment. He called out WWE. And a lot of fans actually resonated with that because a lot of fans agreed with what he was saying, how John Cena was the golden boy, or Triple H was the golden boy, and nowadays Roman Reigns. Like, what are your thoughts about CM Punk as a whole in today's atmosphere? I mean, obviously you talked about him having a pop and how he's affected the business, but if Roman Reigns and CM Punk were to be in the same ring together, how do you think that would go, and how would the fans react to that?
Well, first of all, I think the fans would, go berserk. Uh, I think that's a match that fans have been wanting to see. I mean, if you remember, like, I don't remember Punk and Reigns ever really having like a one-on-one, especially because at the time Reigns wasn't as over as he is now. He was still like part of the Shield. They were still fairly new. Um,
Hmm.
but yeah, this version of Reigns and this version of Punk, I just think fans would go crazy over that. I think they would just react, and I'm trying to look for the word here, but all right, basically, how it would go really truly depends on how it's displayed. Like, oh, is it going to be like a AWW merger, and they're just gonna? And that's the thing. Like, it's all situational. Like, first of all, this is
Yes.
never going to happen, but unfortunately, um, but I don't see the two companies ever come like doing something like that. So
Hmm.
I try to always be realistic and logical. Um, Given how, if you take into account how WWE uses Reigns, and then take into account how AEW uses Punk,
Hmm.
I think all right, Punk's better, but I think Reigns wins just because he's got freaking the help of Heyman and the Usos and all that
Right.
shit. So if you're taking them at face value, I think Reigns wins. But if you, I guess, consider like what AEW would do with it, and they wouldn't just have Punk win just to have Punk win. They would actually make it like a really good match and make it um, realistic in a sense of like pro wrestling. And in that case, Punk wins all day because
Oh, of course.
Punk is the better wrestler.
Oh, I agree 100%. And another huge piece of wrestling news, other than AEW getting some possible new stars from WWE. How about Ring of Honor? They did announce earlier in the week that the company would be going on a hiatus after its upcoming pay-per-view Final Battle. What are your thoughts on that? I'm sure you have more.
Um, yeah, there are only like there's only so many companies out there right now. Like, I mean, there are many companies out there, but there's only so many that are actually true competitors. And I
Mm-hmm.
think it's just kind of caught up to Ring of Honor. Um,
Yeah.
like for like as much as WWE, in my opinion, just sucks. Um, they're still pretty popular right now. I mean, they are losing, the ratings battle and all that to AEW. AEW has grown substantially over the last couple of years. Impact Wrestling starting to make a comeback. AAA Wrestling's still hot. New Japan Wrestling's still hot. Global Force is still around. Like, I just
Mm-hmm.
think fans have kind of just gone away from Ring of Honor because of everything else that's there, and like especially AEW because that's really the big thing right now. Um, so yeah, I just think all the competition, especially that of from AEW and then again Impact, I think it's just taking a toll on them, and they're finally sitting there going, "Oh shit, we need to restructure. We need to rethink what we're doing because it's just not
Mm-hmm.
working." I mean, and that's another. You never really see it on. Like, I've seen them on late at night, like 12:30, 1 o'clock in the morning. Like, that's their time. So, like, who's really gonna be watching around then?
Right.
And then they had to like, if I remember correctly, they had to like stop like altogether like during COVID, like when it was really bad, like they couldn't even film anything. So that was, that definitely hurt them. It's just they've lost so many guys over the years to other companies.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but the thing is, they've always been able to bounce back because they always have an eye for talent.
Right.
They always discover all these guys. I mean, hell, if I remember correctly, they discovered uh Samoa Joe, CM Punk, Seth Rollins. I know AJ Styles was there for a time, but he wasn't really actually discovered by them. But he was there for a time still. I'm pretty sure Bryan Danielson. That's where he got his start. Kevin Steen, now known as Kevin Owens in WWE. Um, Young Bucks, they were pretty young when they were there. Like it's kind of hard to remember. I mean, they've been around for almost 20 years. It's kind of hard to remember where everybody got their start or not. But a lot of big names that are now, in WWE, AEW, AAA wrestling, New Japan, like a lot of them got their start from Ring of Honor.
Definitely.
So,
Go ahead.
so yeah, I think it caught up to them. I think like ultimately what killed them, in my opinion, was the pandemic
Yeah.
and the rise of AEW.
Oh, for sure. And I actually have some stats over here now. This is actually stats taken from 2 weeks ago from FightGameMedia.com. So if you want to go test out their numbers, see if you want to go contest their numbers, go right ahead. I'll provide a link right down in the description. But here we can see NXT, Raw, and SmackDown in the past few weeks. This is a 10-week average compared to AEW Rampage, so I think it's a little bit unfair that they didn't compare the other shows that AEW has, and I'm not really familiar with other shows AEW does have. But we do see here that SmackDown, when they aired in the same week, Rampage and SmackDown totals. So the total, I would say, in 2021 of the week of October 13th, SmackDown did have a total of 2 million people watching, while Rampage only had 732,000. I believe that was one of their lowest weeks watched. And we can see here that NXT in that same week had 632,000. So it averages out to 673,000 people watching. So it's like, oh, I'm sorry. That stat was 632,000 for NXT on October 13th. My bad. And then Rampage had a total of 502,000 on October 13th. So we can really see the discrepancy between the two shows. I think personally, some more shows, like more stats, are needed to compare the two companies. But with all these stars going over to AEW, I don't really see these stats sticking. I'm pretty sure AEW will probably rise in numbers once they get more talent.
True, and you also gotta account for AEW Dynamite. That's very huge. That's their longer televised show that's on Wednesdays for 2 hours. I want to say starting at 8.
Mhm.
Another thing with Rampage you have to take into consideration: one, it's only 1 hour long, and two, it's on at 10 o'clock at night on Fridays, so not a lot of people are watching it that late. A lot of people are just DVRing and watching it later.
Yeah.
That's kind of like what I do with it. But and then yeah, Rampage. Oh, there was a couple weeks where they were really struggling to get viewers, but again, it's all situational. And like you said, it's not really fair that they didn't include uh, AEW Dynamite. And then if you include the streams for AEW Dark, I'm
Mhm.
sure I'm sure the ratings are very, very close, if not AEW beating WWE out.
Mhm.
I wouldn't be surprised
Right.
if that information came out. And that's kind of been like the rumors and the reports is, oh yeah, well if you consider everything, then yes, AEW is beating WWE in the ratings. But going from show versus show, I would say I wouldn't be surprised if SmackDown was beating out Rampage,
Mhm.
but then I wouldn't be surprised if AEW Dynamite was beating out like a Raw or NXT, especially NXT, because if you remember correctly, NXT used to be on Wednesdays,
Mhm.
and AEW Dynamite came out, and then NXT after a short while had to move nights.
Right.
So
And going back to the stats here, we can see that the week of August 25th, Rampage had a total of 1 million or 1.1 million viewers. And
yep,
NXT only had 685,000, Raw had 2 million, and SmackDown had 2 million. So when that show must have been impactful, but that's besides the point. With those numbers, you can't really argue. Like this, AEW does have the potential for at least, I think Rampage is a brand new show to surpass WWE in multiple ways. Again, if they get more talent on here, there's no way AEW will not surpass WWE in sets.
Yeah, and then speaking of getting more talent, I mean that's kind of been the rumors lately. Much of WWE's their contracts are up within the next year or two.
Hmm.
Some notable ones over the next few months that are coming to an end that I really do believe will make the switch from AEW to from WWE to AEW.
Hmm.
Um, Ricochet, as you mentioned earlier, I mean he's pretty much just been buried by the company. You know, Vince doesn't seem to like him very much. I don't understand why. If you ask me, Ricochet is one of the best in-ring performers in today's like modern style of professional wrestling.
Hmm.
He's wrestled literally all over the world. Like he's wrestled in Ring of Honor, he's wrestled in New Japan, AAA for a time. He was in Lucha Underground when that was a thing. He was known as Prince Puma, and pretty much anywhere he went, he was a main eventer.
Right.
You know, um, but not in WWE. WWE's been pretty much he hasn't really done anything. And I doubt that he's happy. So I definitely could see him making the switch to AEW. A couple other names, Sami Zayn and Kevin Owens.
Oh
I
yeah.
heard they're gonna go. I heard they're making the switch. They're not happy in WWE. And it makes sense, especially because they've kind of like followed their friends
Hmm.
when it comes to wrestling. Like their friends in real life are like the Young Bucks. It was Young Bucks, Adam Cole, Kenny Omega, some of those guys, John Moxley. Guys that have again been around the world. So and all of them are in AEW right now. So I definitely see Owens and Zayn making the switch, and like that's if you ask me, that's three huge losses. WWE might not look at it that way, but those guys, I've been following their careers for a long time, and those guys can fight just about anybody, and it make it the greatest match you've ever seen.
Oh, yeah, for sure. And if the rumors are true, going back to Bray Wyatt, if the Fiend moves over, mind you, and at least in my opinion, he's one of the most entertaining superstars on the roster in WWE. And I know he's taken some breaks. Like even when he was with the Wyatt family, he was still one of the more entertaining superstars of that era. And it's insane to think that he might actually go to the competitor, and Vince is actually gonna maybe let it happen. WWE doesn't really have much. Maybe in NXT, but when you look at the events that are going on now, it's Roman Reigns, Brock Lesnar, Bobby Lashley, and Drew McIntyre. And out of all of those, I'd say Drew McIntyre is the only one that's really entertaining. Maybe Reigns has a good match here and there, but
And that's the thing is WWE ever since the new deal with Peacock, they let some of basically in part as part of the deal, some of Peacock's executives would be basically replacing some of the executives of WWE.
mhm,
And so they have this new mindset, this new format is why waste money on talent that's not being used? Why hoard talent? So they're going into this new format of, oh, we're just gonna have like a sprinkle of guys on each roster, and that's gonna be it, and we're gonna make it work. But what's ending up happening is we're seeing the same rivalries over and over and over with the same results, and it's just boring. And it's just like don't get me wrong, like I love Drew McIntyre, but I'm tired of seeing him face Lashley or Reigns for the title. Like, and I'm tired of seeing Reigns and Lesnar fight, and I'm tired of just seeing one and dones. Like that's kind of been the thing, especially with Reigns, is like there's no rivalry. It's just all right, have a match with somebody, okay, have them win, move on to the next one. There's no build up.
right,
There's no oh hey, we're gonna fight two or three times. Like I mean, granted, that does get boring when you do that every time, but if you do it in the right way, it's not like like Drew McIntyre and Bobby Lashley, that was dragged out, but like the first couple of matches were like two or three matches were pretty great, and then they dragged down. Like you can't do that,
right.
when it was Drew and Orton, I think they fought two or three times. That was great. That was perfect, and they had build up, they had promos, they had conflict. That is how you're supposed to do it, you know.
Yeah.
Um, but that's not what they do anymore. It's the same guys over and over, and it's easy to lose interest. And really, the thing with Reigns is like I like Reigns on the mic. And that's kind of been the reports over the last year,
Hmm.
is that ever since he started the head of the table thing,
Yeah.
he's unscripted. And that to me that's pretty impressive because I do think he's cut some pretty good promos.
Hmm.
Um, but again, it's in the ring. Like he's not the best performer in the ring. The way he wins his matches is awful, and then the fact that again, it's like there's no build up, there's no rivalry. It's just he just goes in there and beats whoever.
And half the time, it's not even him actually wrestling. It's just him on the mat, and then his buddies just come save him.
Yeah,
When it
it's
happens over and over again, you're just gonna oh well, Reigns is gonna win. Oh well, the Usos are gonna come in and save him. Oh well, Reigns is just gonna win
yeah,
again.
it's predictable. So like they took the first like they did. How do I want to word this? The beginning of it was great because at the beginning, again, it was, oh, let's pair him up with Heyman. Oh, let's have this whole head of the table character. Oh, let's have him go unscripted. Let's have him cut great promos. Like it was good in the beginning, but now it's just dragged out, and it's just again like there's no. It's a joke.
Yeah.
It's a joke because like you said, it's or it's every match. Oh well, Usos are gonna help him win this one. Oh well, he's just gonna win for some bullshit reason. Oh, Usos are gonna help him again. Oh, Heyman's gonna help him. Oh, this is gonna happen.
Yeah.
It's like it's terrible. But then you go over to AEW. Look what they're doing. Like they'll freaking have just for an example. Just for an example, they'll have. And they actually did this. They had Kenny Omega and Adam Page over a year ago as a tag team. It was pretty interesting. Now, typically people people didn't have a great response to it at the beginning because like, oh, these are two heavyweight competitors. These are main eventers. These guys should be going for the title. Why are they going for the tag team titles?
Mm.
Well, because when you have so much talent, you have to kind of move guys around. But they made it work, and they made it interesting, and it was good. But then they also started, after a little while, kind of teasing them breaking up. And then they would tease it, and then they wouldn't. And then they would tease it, and they wouldn't.
Mm.
And while this was all going on, I think that's when Dark Order started to take over. And then after a little while, Dark Order and Adam Page were feuding, and then Kenny Omega had another feud going on with somebody else at the time, and then that started another feud, and then freaking they officially broke up, but Adam Page went away for a while. Now Adam Page is back, and now he's back to feuding with Kenny Omega, but Kenny Omega is also feuding with Bryan Danielson and this person and this person. It's like they find ways to like keep their guys in multiple storylines. That way, you never know really what's gonna happen next.
Mhm.
Because you don't like, oh well, yeah, like say Omega's fighting Bryan Danielson, but then freaking Adam Page comes out to attack freaking Omega, but then oh wait no, Dark Order comes out to attack. Like it's like you like there's so many things going on, and it keeps it interesting because and I guess some people might think it's complex, but you're telling multiple stories. That way it's not the same thing every freaking night.
Yes.
And then another thing is something that WWE has been doing a little bit every now and then is they'll have somebody come out at the beginning of the night, challenge the champion, and then the champion will fight him at the end of the night, and that'll be it.
Yeah.
Whereas AEW, the champion will be like, all right, well, if you want to fight me, you can, but it's not going to be tonight. It's going to be next week, or it's going to be the next pay-per-view, or whatever.
Mhm.
So they let it build up.
Yeah, because if you notice in WWE, like you mentioned, with the champion or someone else comes out and says, "Oh, you can fight me for my championship tonight," and then they end up losing.
Yeah, and it's just one and done. It's over.
Yeah,
Like, that was it.
they need to really fix their storylines there, and especially with Halloween coming or tomorrow, actually, they really need to step up their game because especially with these huge matches like Halloween Havoc. I'm not sure what the show's called around Christmas. Probably they come up with some other name for it. But usually around those popular times of year, they really need to step up their game and what they're doing because probably there's going to be more viewers on the television wondering what's gonna go on. Like Halloween Havoc, I mean, I'm not sure it's the most popular show that WWE has, but that's still, you gotta think of something to make Halloween Havoc memorable. Just like WrestleMania, just like the Royal Rumble, just like some Hell in a Cells, You gotta think about ways to make the match interesting so people keep coming back and you don't lose them to the competitor. Like AEW, where there's amazing matches compared to WWE's lackluster matches. You gotta think of something. You gotta reel the fans back in. You don't, because repetition, sure, you can get away with that a few times, but when the viewer learns what's going on, they don't care. They don't. They're gonna, again, repetition. They're gonna realize that Reigns is gonna keep winning. He's gonna always be champion, and then it's probably gonna be that Drew McIntyre that beats him, and then Reigns is just gonna get his title back. That's the cycle. They don't have many people unless they're old timers and they're Goldberg or John Cena, and they go over for a few matches or a feud with again the same few characters they only have, and then they have those characters win, and then the cycle continues. You need something different.
Yeah, exactly. And it's not like that WWE has anybody that they can call up from NXT. I mean, they have a few guys that are pretty good there. But, like, they don't want to go to the main rosters just because of how bad it is. Like even like their own talent knows like how bad it is, of course. But it's they struggle to bring up guys from developmental because like everybody's like, no, I don't want to be a part of that. Like it's not professional wrestling.
Of course.
And then when you mentioned Halloween Havoc, I mean Halloween Havoc, I remember like back when that was a WCW pay-per-view, that shit was memorable. Like
Yeah.
that was back when that's back when professional wrestling was professional wrestling,
Yeah.
You had the freaking, oh my god, I'll never forget. I want to say it was Halloween Havoc 1997. Rey Mysterio versus Eddie Guerrero, mask versus belt. That was one of the best moments ever, and that's still one of the most memorable moments in wrestling history. And like as you said, like they need to figure out, like WWE needs to figure out ways to, make memorable moments again and get the fans interested and involved.
100%. And if you think about between the two shows, it'll be the last point I bring up because I do want to talk about one of my favorite holidays coming up. Speaking about Halloween Havoc, let's talk about some Halloween. But the last point I would do want to bring up is what's more memorable, CM Punk returning after all these years or Roman Reigns winning again? You tell me. Which one?
CM Punk, easy. That's an easy answer. I don't gotta think about it.
Exactly, and the cycle will continue where AEW just keeps beating out WWE. The only reason I see WWE surviving is because it's the name alone, WWE. People just know WWE more than AEW. That's it.
And that's the thing is people keep coming back because of the name. You know, what I find commonly in wrestling fans is we have that never lose all hope mentality.
Mhm.
So we hope for better days for WWE. We continue watching because we hope that they're actually going to do something different, and they just never do, and it just continues to disappoint us.
Yes.
But I think WWE is just getting to that point where they just don't care. They all they care about is ratings and money.
And I think it's been like that for a few years now. Unfortunately, it's unfortunate the corporate greed really gets to that point. But we know you can't save them all. But what you can save is of course your holidays, like like what's the word I'm looking for, memorable moments, I guess, we're calling back to
Traditions.
traditions. So WWE has its own traditions, obviously, of being horrible at what they're doing, and AEW has great traditions in beating WWE. But one of my personal traditions is of course going out on Halloween. Obviously, when I was younger, I used to trick or treat a lot. I'm sure you did as well. And nowadays, I like to pass out candy. 'Cause I do like to see the smiling faces of the people out there, getting not only their candy, but still really showing what Halloween's about. It's not just about, obviously it's about frights. It's really about getting together. Getting with friends, going out with your family, trick or treating. Hanging out. And I do
It's
have
also
some,
those.
yeah.
Go ahead.
And
Go ahead.
I want to bring up some spooky stories here because there are some. But before we go there, any more thoughts on WWE? Because I do want to get to Halloween.
no, I think it's been pretty much said. But to go on with Halloween, don't forget there's also the scaring children part. That's always fun for me. I love doing that.
Yeah.
I don't care who knows. I just I have fun scaring kids. Like I mean like not like no like on Halloween
Yeah.
just 'cause like they gotta earn their candy. Like that's how I think about it.
Right.
Especially the punks that are out there. Let's face it, there are some punks out there. So
Yeah.
I especially do enjoy uh scare
Scare.
like yeah scared. I mean, hey, there was this one year I'll never forget this. I was over at my godmother's passing out like helping her pass out
Yeah.
the candy, and my uncle who that's he is pretty notorious there for like dressing up in costume and like popping out and scaring kids. So
Mhm.
what's funny is I remember they had this set up and they had like dolls around the yard and like I dressed up like head to toe, like you couldn't see my skin, like any of my skin or anything like that. And a lot of people like it's funny because they would come up to me and be like, "Oh, this is they thinking my uncle," and I'd pop out, and it's funny because they knew what was gonna happen, but they still screamed
Mhm.
anyways. Like they still got scared. And eventually, people around the neighborhood they started to realize that I wasn't my uncle because then he was also doing his thing. So like, oh, who the hell's this new guy?
Mhm.
But I remember this one kid. I remember this one kid. He comes up to me. He's like, I know you're real. I know you're real. I don't say anything. I don't move. So he gives me a couple nudges. I don't move. He's like, no, come on, man. I know you're real. I know you're real. Come on. He's like, what the heck? And right when he starts like questioning everything, that's when I popped out and like just scared the crap out of him. I remember him running down the street, freaking yelling, ah! But the best part, this is the best part of the story. About an hour later, I hear footsteps running up behind me, and I'm like, "Oh my God, tell me it's not. Please don't tell me it's the kid. Like, don't tell me it's the same kid." I'm like, "Somebody's in the yard. Somebody's coming up behind me, so they know I'm here. It's got to be somebody from earlier." I'm like, "I bet you it's that kid." Sure enough, I hear the same voice, but this time he's with his parents. I hear him go, "Mom, Dad, this is the guy I was telling you about. He's real. He's real. I'm telling you, he's real. Dad, you gotta believe me." So he starts shoving me from behind. Again, I don't move, I don't make a sound, nothing. He's like, "What the hell? I'm telling you, he's alive. This is a real guy." I can hear his dad coming up. He's like, "I don't know, man. I don't know, bud." He starts shoving me again. Again, I don't say anything or move. And I see him like so terrified and like just creeping up like over the side of me, like to look into my eyes.
Mhm.
Like, come on, this isn't a dummy. Like, this has got to be the guy, right? And he's sitting there, and he's like so scared. He inches up ever so slightly, gets right up in my face, and I pop out again, and the freaking same reaction. Just start screaming and running down the street. His dad comes, his dad comes up. He's like, "Thanks, man. I've been trying to scare him all night." Yeah.
I can't.
So
That's a great
that's a
story.
story.
I do remember
Yeah.
one Halloween. There was a it was a couple, and it was a teenage couple, and the guy was like, or the female was like, "Oh, you think you tough, huh? I know you fake. I know you fake." And the boyfriend's like, "Yo, what are you gonna do?" And all I did was walk forward because I was a mannequin that year, and I walked forward. He was down the street, and the girlfriend's like, "Thanks, I'm dead now." Is- and then
Nice.
she was like, "Well, it looks like I know what I'm doing tonight." Let's just say they're probably not a couple anymore after that instance. Now, Halloween's obviously the spooky season, and not only is it time for again getting together, it also has again what I mentioned, spooky time and frights and treats and tricks. You have any ghost stories do you would like to share?
Mm, Unfortunately, not like. I mean, I have like, oh, like there's been rumors in my family, like, my house being haunted, but nothing's ever really been confirmed. But like, oh, this shit doesn't really happen anymore. But I remember when I was younger, just weird things would happen. So like, where like how my house is set up, like I sleep in the basement, and I remember like it'd be like really late at night, like everybody would be home, everybody would be asleep. Um, And I remember the door, like our front door would like because it's right at the top of the stairs for me. Uh, I'd hear it open up, like
Mm-hmm.
creak, like,
Mm-hmm.
and then I'd just hear it slam shut, just boom, and like, but nobody would wake up, and I'm like, is somebody home? Like, did somebody come home? Like, did somebody go out? And I didn't hear them. They came back, and like, I'd like, investigate, and nobody was up, nobody was awake, and I'd question them the next morning, and they're like, yeah, no, nobody was up around that time. Nobody left the house. Nobody came in. Um, so I would hear that. I remember hearing boot steps all the time, like especially when nobody was home.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, I remember hearing boot steps, lights flickering all the time, just like weird things. Oh, this kind of creeped me out. Also, when I was younger, my TV sometimes would just come on and off by itself.
Oh, yep.
I'm like, oh, and I'm like, am I on the remote or something? And then I'd look, and the remote would be like halfway across the room. I'm like, oh, all right, so it's not me. What's causing the TV to go on and off? And
Honestly,
different things happen.
that would creep me
But
out.
I mean, that's really all. Like, I mean, just your typical stuff, I guess, would happen.
Yeah, just your
Sometimes
typical ghost messing with you.
yeah, sometimes I'd see things like out of the corner of my eye, like movement or something, like shadow figures. But
Yeah.
it
That
hasn't happened in a long time for me, so like I don't know. But I mean, my family has always said, "Oh yeah, we have a ghost that haunts the family," and blah blah blah. And I'm like, I don't know.
I
That's
mean,
really all I have. How
yeah.
about you?
I do have. They're not really major ghost stories. I know you do wanna. I'll bring it up later. You do want me to visit a place that I'm definitely not going to visit.
I know what
um.
you're talking about.
So I do have two stories. So it was actually quite recently. It was actually a few months ago. I told you this actually. Um. So I was obviously I was playing the game with you. We were actually recording an episode of podcast. I think we were preparing for it, and right off the corner of my eye, two pieces or a piece of printer paper went flying across the floor. So I was like, oh, maybe it's windy outside. I went to go check to see if it was windy. None of the trees were none of the leaves were moving. So that means there wasn't really a substantial wind moving the tree like moving, going throughout the area. So I was like, all right, maybe if I open the windows, or maybe the windows are open, not open the windows, maybe the windows were open. Zero windows were open, and there's no way that a draft would pull that paper right out of the printer like it did. And the paper flew across the floor, and then my dog started barking right at the printer, and I was like, "What are you?" And he's blind in one eye, mind you. So when he's scared or something and he's staring at it, that means he sees something he does not like. So when he
Yeah.
he was looking at the printer and up at something, and he was barking. And I was like, what's the matter, bud? And he just looked at me and he had his tail down. So I went to go put the paper back in, and the paper shot out again. I was like, you know what? I'm not doing this. And I'm a Christian, so you know me. I got the holy water so quick,
Yep.
and I dealt with the problem then and there. And another, kind of ghost story I had would be at my old school. And I think I told you about this too. And I believe it
Been a
was.
while. You might have.
Yeah, I was in the school basement doing something for a teacher, and we heard creaking on a floor above us, and we thought, what the heck's going on up there? Maybe someone's here, because this was after school, mind you. No one's in the school except for maybe the staff or like detentions, but this was like way after like detention time. So we went to go check upstairs, so maybe it was a teacher, and nothing. There's no teachers. The one desk was a little tilted, but that's it. So we went back down and we heard the creaking again. You know how the desk would creak on the floor. So we wanted to go check the room again, and there was nothing there. And the basement door, I'm not kidding you. We went back down, of course, to go finish their job. And the door shut by itself. And it's not like those doors you think, well, you open it and then it shuts by itself. You know what I'm talking about, right? Like the ones you go out, you exit the building, you enter the building.
Oh yeah, yeah.
It's not like one of those building or one of those doors. It's shut on its own, like slammed. That creeped me out, but I mean, I kind of figured that school was haunted anyway.
Yeah, the amount of stories about it. Yeah, absolutely.
Another thing I would say, it's not really a ghost story. It's just a little creepy. Remember those? I was helping a friend out because he recently helped lost his mother, and I was helping him cope with it because he's a friend of mine. And actually, I knew a trick where it was you put a pot of water or a bowl of water, and you put light over it. I think I told you about this. And all you got to do is you make ripples in the water, and then you ask questions. Kind of like what ghost hunters do with EVP sessions, except you ask for images instead in the water. And what you would do is you make ripples in the water, and then you go in the video editing software of your choice, and you go frame by frame. And I found some creepy images, I will have to say, and I'll probably put them up on screen. I'll put one of the creepiest one. I believe I showed you there was a whole face. There was a few that showed faces, and then I think the most emotional that time that night was for my friend. He asked to see his mother, and I'm not gonna show that part, obviously. There, we did a side by side of his mother's photo and the picture we saw, the photo we saw in the water, and the face that popped up in the water was exactly the same as the mother, the exact same. The two,
Wow.
and the kid obviously started crying. We had to console him, but I'm convinced that his mother came to see him that day or visit him. It's just to let him know that she's there watching over him that day. And it goes to show that yeah, it's Halloween spooky, but other than Halloween, spooky spirits, not all of them are spooky. Obviously I wouldn't want spirits following me around, but a confirmation that your family, a loved one, is looking over you is the greatest consolation you can get. At least in my
Yeah.
perspective. Now let me know what your favorite holiday down in the comments is, but Halloween is definitely one of my favorites. Is Halloween one of your favorites as well, or does that go to Christmas or Thanksgiving?
Honestly, like as far as like favorite holidays, like definitely Halloween is always been up there for me. Just the fright of it all, the whole I sit there and like I'll watch any horror movie like whatever. Like I've always been into like the scary. So like yes, Halloween has always been one of my favorites. I would say yeah, Christmas, Thanksgiving are too, but Halloween, man, there's something about it that I just can't get enough of it.
Right? It's the feeling of giving frights. Now, I guess I'll bring it up now. This will be the final point. He wants you because he's a Ghost Adventures. I think Ghost Hunters, Ghost Adventures. I forget the name.
Ghost Adventures, I love Ghost Adventures, and I always been intrigued by ghost hunting, and I want to do it myself.
I don't.
That's
So
right. Go
there
ahead.
there is a spot he wants to bring me to, and I will not be visiting that spot. Even if he tries to force me, I will not be visiting that spot. You can go ahead and visit that spot. Just send me just make sure I'll give you some kind words at your funeral. I'll tell you that much.
Listen, we all know that if I just promise you food, you'll be joining, so it's fine. I got this.
I will still not be going.
You can say what you want, but yeah, no, I'll get you there.
Can
Definitely
you?
get
Why
you
don't you
there, buddy.
name the episode so people can go watch it if they want to go watch it?
Oh, so there's actually a couple episodes, but Bobby Mackey's Music World and Return to Bobby Mackey's Music World, located in Wilder, Kentucky. Uh, like I said, I'm a huge Ghost Adventures fan, so like I wanna definitely investigate it. I will be bringing holy water. And if I know the name of a bishop, I will definitely be calling him and telling him to come with me in case something happens. Because I mean, the stories about this place, things that Ghost Adventures has also caught themselves, it's pretty horrific.
Hmm.
But I'm crazy like that. Like I said, I've always been intrigued, so I definitely want to do it myself. But people have been scratched and attacked there. People have been, possessed, to the point where they've had like, thoughts of like, killing people and shit like that. And it's bad. Like they have, there's what they what they say are demons there that mimic voices of people you know, loved ones. Though
Hmm.
that really f's with people. And then there's also the fact that some of these demons, they like to attach themselves to you and follow you home and ruin your home life. And but like if you know the thing with ghost hunting is like if you know how to protect yourself, you know how to prevent that stuff from
Hmm.
happening. So I wouldn't go in there just not knowing what I'm doing. But that's something. That's definitely a place I want to go to just because of how much Ghost Adventures has meant to me over the years, and like how much I want to like go ghost hunting and like actually catch like substantial like substantial evidence of
Yeah,
the paranormal. I know there's many skeptics out there, but I am definitely a true believer.
of course. No, that is the end of our show today, everyone. So thank you guys for watching. I hope you guys did enjoy today's episode. We are gonna try to get a more consistent schedule, but with Jason having school and work, we're gonna have to try to balance that out.
Yeah, and we've also, I mean, both Sean and I have also had family
Correct.
issues and things like that. So, but we are gonna figure it out, and we're also gonna try out some new formats, I believe, over the next few weeks, month or so. Some new formats, different ways of like getting content out to you guys. That way, you guys do always have something to view. Because it's really all about you guys. You guys, you're the ones that make all this happen. So, and we
Hmm.
appreciate you, and we thank you for your patience with us, and we just can't wait to keep making content for you guys.
All right. Thank you guys for watching. Comment down below what you think of the AEW versus WWE fiasco. Comments on CM Punk versus Roman Reigns and Halloween in general. Let us know where you're doing, what your plans are, what your favorite holiday is. And thank you for stopping by. And we'll see you on the next episode of the Cabral Salisbury Show, Clueless J or J Sports Review.
Take care, guys.